Hello everyone and welcome back, or hello if you're new here. My name is Nina. I will, like always in these wonderful episodes, be talking all about the crafty things that I've been doing. And coming to you from a warmer, definitely been warmer since I last recorded, but still quite cold York. It's been just over 2 weeks since I recorded my last episode, but my latest video was a bit different. So I did release something last week where I talked about my Make 9 for 2021. I never did a proper Instagram post because I didn't want to decide what projects to do if I couldn't be with my yarn, and I wanted to make my Make 9 be projects where I already had the yarn for it instead of eventually buying more and things like that. So if you haven't checked that video out and you want to hear what I'm hoping, 9 projects I definitely want to try and get done this year, make sure you check out that video. But yes, it is currently Tuesday. I am filming on a Tuesday afternoon. So it's the 23rd of Feb, 2021. It feels really weird saying that. But I don't have to write the date anymore. I remember at school when the year changed, it got really confusing when you had to write the date and you'd always cross it out and be like, no, I got it wrong. At least if you write 20 at the end, you can then just be like, oh, added 21. So at least we're, good for that for the next, 80 years or whatever. But I don't write the date anymore. Not permanently with a pen. So, but anyway, let's get into the project because I've done a relative amount of knitting. Probably not as much as I normally would get done in 2 weeks, but that's because part of the reason that I didn't record an episode for last week was, one, I had that Make 9 video planned. I could have released it at a different time, but I filmed that and had mentioned, oh, I think I'm coming down with something. And I wrote in that video, literally the next day, I was in bed with a fever and a cough. Got my test done. I was all good. It was just a really bad cold that I'd already sort of been fighting off a bit, but it wasn't that bad. And then it just really hit me on that, I think it was Sunday. And then for all of last week, I've pretty much just been in bed. And it kind of meant I was organising something for my department at uni and still had done all of that, but then couldn't take part, and it was a bit sad when you put in so much time and effort and then you just can't even really be part of the thing that you organised. So I organised a lecture for an academic and for her to meet with different people in the department, and she was also meant to have a chat with me and everything, and I just couldn't watch the seminar because I had such a bad fever. And then also couldn't actually have a chat with her, but she was really nice about it, and apparently it all went quite well. So that's a bit of a life update for you. But yeah, so there's been some knitting, but not a lot, because I don't have a lot of projects going on right now where when I wasn't feeling well I could knit. So a lot of this I didn't touch for 4 or 5 days. So I still made a decent amount of progress, because by the time I then got well enough to be able to knit again, I went mad. But let's talk about what I'm wearing. I don't think I've ever talked about this in a video. I don't think I've ever posted about it on Instagram, and I don't know why. I think it just kind of was one of those things that happened in lockdown, and I just went by. But this is the Nurtured sweater by Andrea Mowry, and so it has got, I'll give you a bit of a close-up. Can you see how it's actually got a bit of texture? So it's absolutely beautiful. It's knit bottom up, so I actually had to do the sleeves first, but I only did one because I had to put my stitches on hold and I didn't want to put it on scrap yarn and then deal with it. So I did the first sleeve, kept it on my DPNs, and checked my tension, my gauge with that, and then did the body, joined the first sleeve, knitted up the second, joined the second sleeve, and then did the rest. So you can see it's got raglan, decreases, I guess, because it's bottom up. And I like the fact that you work the sleeve first, or at least work the sleeve bottom up, pardon me, because I got to try it on as I was going along. And when you're working top down, it's quite hard to do that because you have to put the whole jumper on, you have to make sure your cable for the body is big enough, and it's just a whole faff with the yarn still attached. But with this, it was just like, yep, cool, fits, because you do obviously have to increase for the arm, and she kind of tells you roughly where to increase, but suggests try it on and see how you go. So I feel like the sleeve fits so nicely. I like quite firm fitting sleeves. I know a lot of people don't, but I get really frustrated when there's too much material under here. So I'm really happy with the fit. This literally just came off the blocking mats because I think I finished this October last year, maybe even sooner than that. And I knitted it really quickly, but you have to, because you work it bottom up, you have to seam together the underarm. That's the only thing I hadn't done. It's like 10 stitches you have to seam together on each side, and I just refused to do it. So I finally got it out. I think this was just before I got ill. And then seamed it up and was like, I'm going to block it. And then I was like, oh, I feel really unwell. So then I think I blocked it over the weekend. Thursday or Friday. I think it was Friday, because that's when I started to feel a bit more human again and alive. So it was relatively dry yesterday, but it's definitely dry now, and I love it. So I used the yarn. It's from Wild Atlantic. It's an Aran weight. That's what the pattern specifies. I got perfect gauge with it. I think it's 100% merino. Well, no, because it's like a Donegal tweed. Like, I've got little, like, what are they called? Nips? Nip? Something like that. So it's not 100% merino, but it is whatever this is. Does that make sense? The colour is called Forest Floor, which I think is so fitting because of the brown and the green. And my mum also really likes this, and I agree. The fact that the, what's it called? The hem. You get this like striping. I think that's adorable. So I'm just wearing it over a dress today, and I'm quite warm. But yes, I really... feels a bit weird lifting it up when whatever. But yeah, I think that's absolutely beautiful. And well, since it just came off the blocking mats, this is literally the first time I've worn it, but it's beautiful. I'm normally not a texture person, but I like this. I don't know, I think it just works with the yarn as well. But so that's a finished object. Because speaking, I did only just recently finish it because I hadn't seamed together the underarms. But the knitting I finished a long time ago. So if you've been watching my latest few episodes, the ones I've recorded for this year so far, I think there's 2. You know that because I took such a long break from recording, there's a lot of projects I need to get through, and there's still a few. Once I go through all of these, there's still probably like one lot after that. So hopefully my next episode, from then on, it will only be things that I've shown you as like, look, I'm working on this thing, and now it's done. But I just still want to show off this stuff because I think it's, you know, it's nice. And so now if I ever wear this jumper again in the future, I'll say what it is, but don't have to say much more than that. So I'd ordered quite a few skeins of this, but I can't remember. I ordered it, but then because it's died to order, I apparently didn't make a note of what I wanted to make. So then made this, but then still had skeins left over. And I think I still have 1.5 left now, because I've now also made some socks. So these are the Sunday socks by Petite Knit. When I made these, I think I have actually blocked them, but I didn't have sock blockers, so I'm going to block them again. So that ribbing and stuff just sits a bit more open. So they're quite long and obviously very thick, but you are kind of meant to, you know, like wear them scrunched down or like folded over. And these were really quick knit because it's obviously Aran weight yarn, and I just think that's really cute. Ooh, I could put these on now and be matchy. I don't really have too much to say about this pattern. It's really simple. If you've got some Aran scraps, worth it. Though, I don't even think you can say Aran scraps. I think I have big feet. I've said this before. UK 8 typically, European 42. Sometimes a 41, depending on the shoe. But my feet are relatively big. So I think I needed almost a full skein. So I think I have like a quarter of one left, maybe. And I think there's 166 meters and 100 grams of this Aran weight yarn. But yes, I'm hoping I'll block them because I don't like it when they shrink together like this, but isn't that amazing? I know a lot of people don't like it when indie yarn like pulls, but I think that's what makes it so interesting, especially because I like the fact that they don't fully match up, but they sort of do, don't they? Whoa. They're like, what do people always say about eyebrows? They're not twins, they're sisters, or like they're cousins or whatever. It's kind of like this, like they're definitely related, but they're not identical. So I managed to make that out of some leftover yarn, and like I said, I think I still have like 1.5, 1.25, something like that. Because apparently I used to be really bad at planning my project. I'm much better now. I have like a whole spreadsheet. Since we're talking about socks, I've got a few more. I think it's, pardon me, dropping everything everywhere. 4 pairs? 4 pairs. I'll talk about these first. Now, I've worn all of these, I think. So they don't look as nice as they did when I finished them. But I think I have posted about it on Instagram about all of these. Look at these. I might have shown these before. I can't remember, but I don't think I've shown them finished. So I just made a pair of plain, cute little vanilla socks. Made them really long in the leg because I wear these with my winter boots. And so this like sticks out at the top, and I think that's really cute. So I just kind of held them up against my boot to see how long they needed to be. This is called January Blues, the yarn, and was the mystery like sock colour that the Fibre Fox did last year. So I didn't knit these up until the end of 2020. Because I wasn't sure, am I going to do something else? Am I just going to do socks? And then I was just like, no, I need a pair of vanilla socks, please. And I love how they've like striped. It's so beautiful. And I love that they're called January Blues. So this is on her Plumpy base. You got to choose what base, but I was like, I'm feeling a bit indulgent and ordered all of the colours last year that she did on her Plumpy base. Because I was like, it's one skein. Like a sweater's quantity, that's a different matter because it's got cashmere in it, so it's like it's a bit more pricey. But I really like it for socks. And so I did a slip stitch heel, so you can see there is some felting because I wear it in boots. Like they get beaten. But even though I've worn them over this like winter, I think they're still doing really well. And it's just at the heel where I know even with normal socks, that's where I wear through really quickly. So that's vanilla sock number 1. Then I've got 2 other pairs to show you that I've also worn a lot. The yarn is from PURRMAID yarns. So this is PURRMAID'S Teal. So another pair of vanilla socks, but I made them a bit shorter. Ooh, pardon me, because, well, I didn't want to wear these in my boots because this is just a standard sock yarn. So it's got nylon in it, so, you know, it's sturdy, but I kind of like to wear these more around the house. And another pair of vanilla socks, also using yarn by the beautiful Helena from PURRMAID Yarns, Nymph. So I knitted both of these pairs as a kind of like shop sample for her so she could show what the yarn looks like knitted up, because this one especially looked very different once you worked it. It's like a micro striping yarn, and so it was nice to be able to include pictures on her website to kind of show people. So I've got 2 of those pairs and I've been wearing them a lot as well. And then I've got, I might have shown these before as well, I've got this pair of vanilla socks. They've also been worn and loved. And this yarn is called Fluorite, and it's by Tiny Teal Handcrafted Yarn. She does some beautiful stuff. So this was also sent to me for free, so I could knit up a pair of socks and then send her some pictures so she can post them on her website and Instagram to kind of show off once again kind of how the yarn knits up compared to how it looks in a skein. So that was a lot of what I did before Christmas, just knitting sock after sock after sock. And since then, I've been loving knitting socks. I think I just really got into my like knitting sock mojo because of this. So that's another pair. So I've got so many socks. I've got an actual sock drawer now where I actually like have them organized by like, I think length and base and stuff like that, and weight, I think, of yarn as well. So my thicker ones are, you know, more of lounging around, and I've got a whole sock drawer. Maybe I'll share it in the future. Now talking about things that I've been working on that I've actually finished recently. So that was all stuff that I'd finished last year. Now stuff that I finished recently. So, remember how I talked about sock mojo? I've got more socks. I don't think I ever shared these because I started working on them when I wasn't really recording anymore. But I did share a progress picture on my Instagram. So these are the kinda magic socks by Wool and the Gang. I got the yarn, my mum bought it for me, but we were in Austria. And we stopped off in Bischofshofen in Austria. It's kind of a sort of special place in Austria for my family. And, you know, the yarn addicts my mum and I are, we Googled, we're like, any yarn shops near here since we're here already? And found a place that was actually closing down, which was really sad. And they had a couple of balls of this yarn. So Mum and I bought a few bits, and she bought this for me. She also bought herself a ball, but I think hers wasn't in the packaging anymore, so she didn't have the instructions, but I did, so I sent her a picture. Did she use the instructions? No. So hers look very different, because to get the same kind of pair, I'll talk about how it looks later. If you know what they're meant to look like, you know they're not meant to really look like this. But you start off with just a long bit of yellow that you're meant to kind of like find the end of where it changes to like a cream color, and from there you then cast on and work until you get it, work the cuff until you get a color change, and then you work until this pink comes along for the heel. And it's an afterthought heel, so then you just leave that yarn, keep knitting until your desired length. So first of all, I think for a lot of people the socks end like, well, for some they end like here and they have to like cut the yarn and then attach the pink again. I was knitting and knitting, I was like, but I still need to keep going. So it looks weird. I think it actually looks okay here, but normally, you know, if it's a contrast toe, I find they're normally not that long. I've just got big feet. I think they suggest only making these up to a size like 41. So the way that this works is if you work to the correct tension, all these little, you get like these leopard prints. So I've got, is it with this one or with this one? Well, I think on both of them. I've got like a couple of spots that worked out relatively well. Like this one here is not too bad. But the problem I had is I tried 2.5 as recommended. That's always how I knit my socks. And I was noticing that my tension was too tight, too loose. So I dropped down to 2.25, hoping that would tighten things up with the smaller needle. And was working, and it worked relatively well for the cuff. But then, I don't know if other people have this, my tension with a cuff is different to stockinette, because I purl much looser than I knit. So then I was constantly playing this game of like knit tighter, knit looser. And then with my second sock, I think was this one, it got a bit better towards the end, but it still just wasn't perfect. No, it was this one. And the needles I was using are the same ones, different size, but same like type of needles, are the Knit Pro Zing DPNs. And they're metal and quite slippery. And I just find it really hard to use them. If the tension is really important, I'm really inconsistent with those because everything just slips around. So they're not perfect, but I still think they're cute. And so it's literally I just followed the pattern that they had in there. Worth it, especially because it was quite cheap because, you know, she was closing down, which was really sad that she was closing down. But Mum and I bought plenty of yarn. So I haven't worn them yet. They're still on my sock blockers. I don't think I've ever shown these. Cheap. I bought these off Etsy. If I can find out from which store, I'll have it linked below. But yeah, so that's first finished object that I actually finished last week. I had one sock done before Christmas and then just never got around to the other one because there was quite a bit of frustration with the first one. But then I was like, screw it. I don't care if they're not perfect. And they're done now. Second finished object is one, I'll get it, is one I never talked about because I cast this on literally just before getting ill, and then finished it I think a few days later. Like, this was one thing I was sort of trying to work on at the beginning. So it's this. So it's actually a bit more purple and a different blue. I'm not sure if that's showing up right. But this is the Vuono hat. I'll have all the information. Okay, let's start with why I did this. So this hat is not for me. A friend of mine asked me if I could make his mum a hat for her birthday. And he was like, I need it relatively quickly. Her birthday's in March. I have to send it to her. And I was like, that's fine. It means I'll probably want to make something in DK weight yarn or heavier. So that was fine. I showed him, well, I asked a couple of questions and he just doesn't really get knitting, so it wasn't that helpful. So eventually I just made a choice for him. And the yarn, I've got some left. So you can see it here. Once again, it's actually a bit more purple than that. This is Blue Blur, pretty sure it's that way around, by Knit Me Sane, which is a BFL cashmere silk, I'm pretty sure. And it's fingering weight. You get 400 meters and 100 grams. But I just held a double. So the original pattern asks for mohair and fingering weight yarn. But I was like, mohair gets everywhere. And when it's on your head, that can be really frustrating. So I was like, nah, let's just go for DK. And it's meant to, this is actually meant to be longer. And then you're meant to like fold it over. But I didn't want to do that for his mum. Because I think she'd get frustrated with that. So it's blocked and everything, and I'm relatively happy with it. I just hated how parts of the pattern were written. It's a paid for pattern, so I don't want to give away too much, but I also want to explain my frustration a bit. And if you check on Ravelry, I did actually do a project page for this, and other people kind of had stuff written as well, and I wish I checked it before I started this. Because everyone gives you suggestions about how to do the flower motif better. Because in my opinion, how you get these kind of longer drawn bits, if you can see that, isn't very clear. And then also, when you do certain decreases, I think they should have specified, it just says knit two together. But if you're relatively, not even necessarily experienced knitter, you know that there's knitted together and there's SSK, and you know, knitted together leans to the right, SSK leans to the left, which would have been handy here, and I think it would have made everything look better. And I didn't kind of think about it, once again, remember I was ill, until I was almost done with the flower pattern, and then I was like, why don't they look like in the picture? And then everyone kind of wrote on Ravelry, don't do knit two together twice. Do an SSK so it leans better. Wish I'd done it, but I haven't. I think it will be fine. I don't think well, it's not like my friend or his mum knows what it's meant to look like. And I think it's still like a beautiful hat. But I did that in like a couple of days because it's just quite easy, isn't it? I find hats really easy. So I need to figure out whether I'm giving that to him and he'll send it, or am I sending it? Just need to ask him. But I've done that. And I have a decent amount of yarn left, so I'll probably just go into my scrappy blanket project bag, but I might actually try and use this for something because it's really nice. I like the fact that the BFL is quite sturdy, but then with the cashmere and the silk, it's like, ooh, it's soft, but feels a bit like sturdy, and I don't know. I think I just like that compared to like a merino, which is also nice. Last finished object. Wow, we've already been talking for ages. I'm just going to show it off. I have not finished weaving in the ends, but this baby is done. So, for those of you with keen eyesight, can you see how there's like a line here? Last time I showed this, I think I'd split for sleeves. I was on the body and I was like, I think I'm going to run out of yarn. I did. Of course I was gonna, because I hadn't done the sleeves yet and I needed quite a bit of white before doing the colour work and transitioning to the black. But I also needed to finish off the actual body. So I'd mentioned, you know, going online and posting in like destash groups. No one had any. So then I was like, okay, fine, I'll just have to buy more from We Are Knitters, placed an order for 2 skeins. And even though it was coming from Germany, it looked like there weren't going to be any issues with the dreaded B word of Brexit. And it was meant to be here like 2 days after I placed the order, which was meant to be, I think, not last week Thursday, the week before. Yeah. And Germany's had really bad weather with all the snow and stuff. Not just Germany, most of Europe, but obviously my yarn was coming from Germany. So the parcel got stuck in Germany because they just couldn't, the trucks couldn't get anywhere, and it was just a nightmare. So then I didn't get the yarn until like, I think the following week, like Tuesday, maybe, Monday, Tuesday. And I wasn't well at that time, so I didn't knit on it. But I did finally finish it over the weekend because it's Aran weight yarn. You get through it pretty quickly. And I'm not too happy with it because I was a bit lazy. I did decreases for the sleeves because I didn't want them to be big all the way, but I should have probably spaced them out a bit more. So the decreases actually like stopped around here instead of obviously there. It's fine when you wear it, but the reason you can see that line is because this is the old stuff, this is the new stuff. And I think this is undyed yarn. So it's from We Are Knitters, it's the Petite wool. So I don't think this is like a dye lot issue. I think this is literally that this has been in the old stuff, the 2 skeins I had, like the rest of it, have been in my stash since 2019. And this is unspun yarn. So even just looking at it now, it just collects anything that lands on it. So any dust, anything at all. So I think that's why this one's so much darker. It's just been sitting around for longer. So I think as soon as I start kind of getting wear out of it, it'll be fine. It will all just get dirty. Haven't actually mentioned the pattern. So this is the Colourburst sweater by Sophie, who's the Knit Pearl Girl on Instagram. I think she's hoping to release this beginning or mid-March from memory. And she made hers, she said, relatively short. I don't think cropped. I think a little bit longer than cropped. I actually made mine really long. So mine sits kind of just below my hips, so like halfway down my butt. Because I know I'm not going to wear anything over this if I wear this. So I want to be able to put it on and not then be like, oh, I have to keep tugging it down because it's too short. It's literally like throw it on and go into the snow. Not rolling around in it, just walking in it. So it's a really good length. I wanted fitted sleeves because, like I said, I like a fitted sleeve. And I think it will also be just a bit, I don't know, I just like fitted sleeves. It just makes everything easier. And I did the optional thing of doing the colour work at the bottom of my sleeves and also at the bottom of my body. So you don't have to do those if you don't have, you know, enough yarn for it. But I did, because I had a full skein of each of these colours. And I had 2 of the black, 2 of the white. But like I said, I had to order 2 more of this. I don't have too much left of the white. I have quite a bit left of the black. I did actually make a project page on my Ravelry if you want to have a look at how much I used for my size. I made the size large. I was originally going to do the extra large based on the measurements, but by the time I finished the increases for the large and tried it on, and then also calculated based on how many, based on how many stitches there were at the bust, at the full point, I actually realised based on the ease that Sophie was suggesting, it probably would be better that the size that she calls a large should be a medium. No, the other way around. The size that she calls a large should be an extra large. Because otherwise I would have had so much ease. It would have been insane. I already have a lot of ease. And since it's Aran weight yarn and you've got the colour work here, I've got it at the bottom at the sleeves as well. It gets thick around here. So in my opinion, you don't actually want too much ease for this. Obviously by the time you actually get down to the main body, you don't have like the double stitches from the colour work. But I still think it's just nice when this sits a bit more on you. So I think I do have like 4 inches of positive ease, maybe even a bit more. I love it. It's so beautiful. And even though like the sleeves are where I didn't have enough yarn to alternate, but the body, you might be able to see it around here. I alternated the skeins a little bit with what I had left and then just knitted in the new one. But I think it's so beautiful. And I made a stupid mistake that I just remembered. The body is knit in 7mm needles. And the collar and sleeves and ribbing and stuff, as in like the cuff of the sleeves, is done in 6mm, so it's a bit tighter. And I'd done one sleeve before I finished the body. So then I took, and I was working magic loop because it was getting too small to do anything else. And then took those needles and started on the body. But of course I'd just done the cuff. So like this bit is all done with 6mm needles. I realised when I got like halfway through the colour work or so that I was like, okay, cool, I need to change needles soon. Wait. Checked what size I had. I was like, no, I'm already knitting with the 6. So I just kept going. I'm sure it will block. It might mean I lose a bit of length, which is okay in my opinion, because it is probably a little bit longer than I maybe wanted, but there'll still be plenty of length and ease and all of that. But this baby is done! So this was a test knit, if I didn't mention that. So the pattern should be out soon-ish, if you do want to make it. And if you don't go for, depending on the size you make, if you don't go for the colour work on the sleeves, and I think the body is the biggest yarn eater after this, you might be able to get away with using some scrappy Aran weight yarn if you've got it. Like I said, I just had like random skeins lying around and I used most of it. And what's left, at some point, I'm going to cast on a hat that will match this. So I think the majority of it will be the black. And then just have the same kind of like colour work motif on it. Probably like the smaller version I've got on the bottom here. Work that for a few rounds and then that'd be that. And then maybe find a pom-pom because I think it'd be cute with a pom-pom. That's my other finished item. Let's talk about works in progress. I've got a lot. But let me start with some you've seen before. It's quite funny that I'm wearing my sweater made out of Wild Atlantic yarn because I've also been working on something with it as well. Different colour. This is what I've got so far. So, in my latest podcast episode, I think I'd shown this and shown how I'd started it. Completely mispronounced the name. I looked it up afterwards. So it's spelt BREGNE sweater by Fibertales, so Lerge from Fibertales. But it's pronounced, when I looked it up, because I think it means fern in Danish, it's pronounced more like BREGNE sweater. Don't even look up what I actually called it. But this is my progress so far. So I've got provisional cast on. This is the back. So that's all worked flat. Well, this is all currently worked flat. I've got my little hole for my head, and now I'm on the front section. So this is all herringbone stitch. You can see that. And I'm just finishing off the front bit with that. And then I need to work the front and the back a bit in stockinette before I join in the round. And then it'll be easy breezy from there. But yeah, I found it really hard at the beginning to get into it because working flat is my favourite. The herringbone stitch, I'm working it on 8mm needles because it's quite a tight stitch, so you need to use bigger needles than stockinette. And I was just kind of hurting my hands and the rows were really long. But then when I got to this bit here where you cast off the stitches for the back and work the like shoulders, I just breezed through it. It was crazy. And then now I'm back onto the slog of the front. But now that I can actually see, you know, it becoming a sweater, I tried it on the other night just to be all like, ooh, look. It's just like this weird little thing sitting on my shoulders. But now I'm actually finding it a bit easier. So originally what I'd decided to do was every like day try and sit down, do one knit round, do one purl round, and see progress that way. But then, you know, I started to do more than that, and then the like shoulders and the front I pretty much just did in one evening over the weekend because I was just enjoying it. So I'm really excited to get working in the round because I think that's what will go really quickly. I do have to move for smaller needles for the stockinette, but I think it'll be great. So the yarn, also by Wild Atlantic, but this is called The Gathering Storm. It's also Aran weight. This is 100% merino because it's not the same like Donegal tweed base. And I've shared the story of how I got this yarn. But it's really exciting. Making decent progress. So my first ball of yarn, that's all I have left now. But one shoulder, Lerge advises you join a new ball so you don't have to like cut the yarn off one shoulder, attach it, cut it, and attach it to the other side. So that's what I did. So I have got a second one that I've started, but it's like what, 4, 5, 6 rows. And so I'm close to finishing this one up, and then we'll start working on my second. But I think this is looking beautiful. And the fabric that you create, because with herringbone, you're essentially working like each stitch twice. This with the merino base is so squidgy. It's quite thick and warm and just The yarn used in the original pattern I think is also 100% merino. So it's just quite nice that I think the original design would have also had this like squidginess. I love it. I love it so much. Like I said, I can't put it down. So at first I was worried. I was like, please tell me I actually have to pick these stitches up again at some point because this does not look neat. I tried my best to do the cast on and cast offs neatly. But you do go back and work it. And the construction as well has just been so interesting to me. I thought I'd have to do the back and then a front piece. But the fact you work it like all in one, it's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. So worth buying that pattern just to kind of figure out a different way of constructing a sweater with like drop shoulders. So I am excited for this. I want it to be done, but I also want to keep working on it. It's one of those things, you know? So I've just slightly turned down my brightness because it's getting, it suddenly got quite grey and miserable outside, and so I felt like I was being blown out. What else? Let's share this. So, if you're not aware, Jennifer Steingass is currently running a knit along until middle of April or something like that. And for that, I've decided to finally cast on my DARKWATER sweater. So this is what I'm currently up to. I think last time I showed it, I hadn't started the colour work yet. I need to change to a longer cable at some point soon, probably with the next increase or so. So I've got a couple of rounds in with the colour work. But still there's quite a few rows, and for the first few it's not that exciting. You're just building up a couple of these like white stitches, and it gets much more interesting later on, but you kind of have to do your increases and stuff, and I've been enjoying it. I've been filming my progress, if you weren't aware, and I'll hopefully be releasing that first video probably the week after this one, so I might once again take like a 2-week break from recording an episode, just so I can make a decent amount of progress and have more to share. But I've already been talking for 42 minutes and I still have more to talk about, so maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe I should be recording every week. But the yarn I'm using, if you can't remember or you're new here, my main colour is charcoal and my contrast colour is chainmail. Don't mind how ratty they look. I caked this up like in the summer, and then just got too scared to get started. So they're both by the lovely Charlie from Noodle Soup. And I remember I actually bought this yarn towards the end of 2019, just before Christmas, because I think like Charlie's car broke down or just broke entirely, and she was like, I don't know if I can afford to fix it, so here's a sale on my yarn. And I was like, I'll support you. But only finally like cast it on when the knit along started. It's been fun. I've been getting much better with my tension and stuff, and I'm getting much more of a feel for like the floats and stuff in the back. Some of them are probably a bit long, but I think it will be okay with a sweater. And it's just made me realise knitting colourwork in the round is so much easier when you've got like a full cable and it's not DPNs and it's not magic loop. So I've been working on this occasionally, but I've had that test knit going on that I just showed. Pardon me. Then also had that hat I needed to make. I've got another test knit I'm working on. And then also the next thing I'm going to show you is for someone else. So I've just had a lot of stuff for other people to kind of knit. So this has kind of had to, you know, wait a bit. But I'll show you the bag. So my lovely friend Helena from PURRMAID'S got me this. And I've also I found this when I was like cleaning out my stash. So it's just a wool barn, like a pin badge thing. Thought that was cute. And I definitely am a yarnivore. Though I feel like that would imply that I actually do something with it. A lot of my yarn just sits around because I can't knit that quickly. So that's my Dark Water sweater by Jennifer Steingass. My other work in progress that I think you would have seen before are my Foxtail socks. Sorry, there's 3 balls of yarn attached to it, which makes it really, really tricky. Close up of my face for you. This is what I've got so far. How cute is this? I'll give you a close up. Focus. There you go. So my tension is quite good in my opinion. The only thing is like those stitches around here, I'm hoping that will block out so it looks a bit sharper. But I'm knitting these on 9-inch circulars because like I said, DPNs, they just drive me mad with keeping the tension with those corner stitches. So these are the Foxtail socks by the Petite knitter, not to be confused with Petite knits like I did at one point. So I've put in the afterthought, well, the scrap yarn for the afterthought heel. And I'm now just continuing the pattern for the leg section, which is just the same as what I've already done here. But I did panic pretty much like at this point. I stopped, checked the pattern, was like, please don't tell me that the bottom of the foot should have actually been worked just plain white, because I don't want to do this. But it's not. You do continue doing the pattern the whole way around. And it's slow going because quite often, like the foxes, these designs, the only thing where you don't have to work 3 colours in a round is obviously the plain cream ones and the brown and like orangey ones. So I'm getting much better at it. I've been trying to also work on holding 2 strands in one hand and one in the other. So normally when I knit Fair Isle is one in my contrast colour in my left my main colour on my right. So I knit continental with my contrast and I throw with my right hand. But with 3 colours, I used to just kind of drop one colour, pick up the next one. And now I'm not doing it with these ones because I've already done so much of the sock. I don't want my tension to change. And if I haven't mentioned, I'm knitting these as a shop sample for Georgie, so the Fibre Fox. So I also want to make sure that they really are good at the end and don't have a huge change in tension. So I'm not changing how I'm knitting these, but I am working on other projects of trying to kind of perfect holding 2 colours in one hand. It just makes it quicker and I find my tension is more even. But I've been loving working on these, but while I was ill, I could not work on them because 3-stranded colour work is already hard. And then when you're ill, it's just, you do not have the brain space. I tried to at one point. I was like, just don't do it to yourself, Nina. No, it's not happening. So I'm going to knit a little bit more, but I think I might actually put the heel in soon to make sure, because they are meant to fit Georgie. So then I can give her a more accurate thing of like, if you want your sock to be 19 centimetres long, then it makes it easier for me to figure out how long I need to knit them, because it tells you how long the toes will be. So the yarn is obviously from the Fibre Fox. So she sent me this for free so I could knit them up for her. And, oh, let's see if I can remember the colours. Driftwood, Maple, Shell. This is always the one I struggle with. I don't know why. And they're all on her Plumpy base. So the fabric it creates. It has, unlike I find with like merino, like just pure merino, it has a bit of like a halo almost. I don't know if you can see. Look at, yeah, a fuzzy kind of halo. And I think that's so beautiful with these socks because it makes it look really rustic and just, oh, wonderful. So I'm hoping I'll finish the first one this week and then start the second one soon. Especially I think the second one hopefully won't take me as long because I can already notice by the time I got to the second starting the second colour work repeat, it was just so much easier because I know what my hands need to be doing and stuff, and all the surprises are kind of gone and you very quickly notice if you've made a mistake. So that's the other work in progress I think you would have seen before. Then I'll share one I think now we're on to new cast-ons. Pretty sure we are. I'll get them. So the first one I've got in here, so this is a project bag, obviously by the Fibre Fox. And I think I've mentioned before, Georgie's mum makes these. They're so beautifully made. And in here, I've got my progress on the sock I finally settled on from the 52 Weeks of Socks book. So I shared, I think it was in my last episode, that I shared the yarn. So this is Winter's Dawn. This is the January colour from Georgie's Mystery Sock Club. I think it's so beautiful. And I decided to go for the first one, which I'm pretty sure is called Intentions? I think it's Intentions. I'll have it. I'll have all the information below. And this is my progress so far. So this is sock 1. I have not finished the first one. Come on, focus. There you go. Let's remove that. So, I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to pick up on this, but there are cables along the front. And, new for me, they work toe up. Didn't realise that when I started, and then I was like, why am I only casting on so few stitches? And I did this late at night, and I was like, oh, it's toe up. I've never done a toe up sock. I really enjoyed it. I had to do it twice because I twisted my stitches at one point when there weren't many. And I'm used to being careful not twisting my stitches when I work cuff down, but never having done toe up. At one point, like 2 of my DPNs just like twisted around and I didn't notice. I didn't get far. I think I got to like the next round was like, what is this? Like here, it was all like twisted around. So it's quite easy to do. I find cables relatively frustrating because it interrupts my flow. Unlike a pattern with like yarn overs decreases, that never interrupts my flow. But what I've been doing is I've had the pattern, the stitches with the pattern are on one DPN and my foot of the sock is on 2 others. So it makes the cables a bit easier. And then I've got, I knit with another DPN, so that makes 4. And then the 5th one is actually just for doing the cable stuff. I know people who like drop the stitches off, transfer 2 to the other needle and then pop those stitches back on. I just don't even want to mess with that. But once again, I've got big feet, so I think I'm getting close now to having to put in the heel, which is also going to be new for me because I have never done toe-up socks. But I really like it. I can try them on as I go, and you can kind of, you know, really use up the max bit of yarn. I'm not sure I'm converted because I obviously haven't got to the heel yet, but we shall see. But it's been a sort of relaxing knit and like a mindful but mindless knit, but it's definitely not a vanilla sock, so occasionally I have to pay attention with the cables and make sure I'm working a left one, a right one on which stitch. But that's been slow going because, like I said, I'm trying to focus on a lot of other things, but every now and then, especially towards the kind of evening, I'll pick this up because for the most part I don't have to pay attention. It's just when I get to cables I just need to think a little bit. Another new cast on. I've still got so much to talk about, I'm sorry. These episodes are just getting insanely long. So I think I sort of mentioned this before but didn't show it off because I hadn't made much progress. So in an earlier episode this year I'd shown off this yarn, so that's Plumpy by Lopi. Smells like sheep. I love it. So this is unspun. I think it's a DK weight yarn, though some people call it worsted and I just get frustrated. But I'll show you the pattern that I'm making. So it comes from the Lane magazine. I think that's how you pronounce it. Issue number 4. Yeah, 4. And the pattern that I'm making is called Aito. I think this might be a newer print of it because I think the first... I can probably check that actually. Because I think it used to have a different name and then it got changed. So I'm wondering if they did a reprint of this and changed it. I don't know if you can hear that. My stomach's just grumbling. Can't see anything. I don't know. But it's definitely called Aito on Ravelry. So it's this shawl here. You can't see much in the picture. This is, I think, the only picture they include, other than a really small one where you definitely can't see anything. But this is by Melody Hoffman, which I'd mentioned before. There was like, is it Melanie? I keep wanting to call her Melanie. It's Melody Hoffman. And she uses Plumpy for it. So when I bought this yarn, I don't think I had a plan for it yet. I just bought a couple of colours that were available, and I bought it from Knit With Attitude. And she uses, I think, 6 different colours. I've only got 5. And I didn't actually want to use like bits of all of them because I want to make some other things with other ones and I'd be worried that I just wouldn't have like enough. So what I've done is I did start in the black and did a garter section, a lace section. Then she talks about using spit splicing to kind of slowly introduce the colour. I did a bit of it, but then was just like, it's a lot of effort. So decided to kind of do it a bit, and there, if you see it in person you can actually see there's a much slower transition than it looks like here, but then moved on to the grey, and currently have this much. So I think you can't really see much because this definitely needs blocking so you can really see it properly, but I'm getting through this. I want to use up the entire skein of this, well, plate I think they call it, before I move on to my 3rd colour, where I also want to try and use as much of it and not change colour again. I think I'm up to like section 3 or something. I think there's 6 or 8. I have the pattern right in front of me. Why am I playing a guessing game? I'll find it. Or I won't find it. find it really hard with these magazines. There we go, it's further back than I thought. So there are 6 sections in total. But one, like section 1, involves a garter section and a lace section. So I'm just about to start section 3 for the lace. So I think I'm at 100 stitches now. Yeah, I've got 100 stitches and literally I'm about to start on the lace now. And I'm loving it. The lace is quite simple, so I've got the magazine, but I've also got the pattern online, so it makes the lace easier. So I just have, I'm watching TV or whatever, and I have the PDF up on my laptop and just have the line I'm currently working on showing, and then kind of like scroll down like move the document so I see what line I'm up to. And it's just really easy because it's a relatively short repeat, and this really hasn't taken me long. I find the garter stitches also like really enjoyable. I just like working with this yarn. So it is a rustic yarn. You can probably see like how hairy it is. So that can make it itchy for people, but the more I work with it, the softer it becomes. And I've just fallen in love with yarn like this. I like the grippiness, that it's not just super soft. I think I'm just a bit done with looking for yarn just because it's soft. I want it to be warm. I want it to be practical. I want it to smell like sheep, apparently, is what I'm really saying. But yeah, so I work on this every now and then, especially if I don't know what I'm working on. The garter stitches I find really easy to do if I'm talking to people, and the lace section I don't do when talking to people, because even though it's quite easy, I do constantly have to check the pattern for every row. But I've been loving this, and I think with this, I might see if I can make a hat with some of the other colours I have. We'll see. And you will see in the future too. So that's being kept in this bag I've shown many times, which my mum got from a craft thing. What's it called? Like a place where you go, where people sell things, not a shop. Oh wow, my brain's just out of it. She bought it in Dubai. That's what's important. And I've shared the yarn before, the fact that if you pull too hard, it can kind of break, but with the way that I knit, that's never an issue because I've pulled from points that are quite close together. So they're long fibres, which mean that you have to actually pull from really far away for it to break easily. So, but there's a few other things. I will mention this magazine again in a bit. Because there is something I might make from it. I'll quickly share this because it doesn't take long. So, I mentioned in my last episode that I've been doing some crochet. So I haven't been doing what a lot of people do of like a square a day, but I'm making the Battenberg blanket. And I just wanted to show you, I've got some red yarn now as well. I've just done 3 since we last talked, you know, 'cause we're best friends since I last shared them. Just thought I'd mention it. Just a great way to use up some scraps. So this is how much I have left of the red yarn. So I'll probably make another one. And that's in a Fibre Fox project bag, which came with the Christmas, it was part of the Christmas Eve box. So just quickly sharing that. I am still occasionally working on it because I find the crochet quite easy to do when I'm tired and want to keep doing something but can't do anything too intense. The other test knit that I'm working on, I will show you now. I'm just going to put it on a hanger because I think it's going to make it easier to see. I'm prepared. Well, sort of. I didn't already have it on a hanger. Oh yeah, the colour's showing up perfectly. So this is the Aurora sweater. And remember how I mentioned Tiny Teal, the handcrafted yarn? This is her pattern that I'm testing. So it's a raglan, but can you see how the increases create these eyelets? So it's just done a bit differently, those increases. And it's meant to be relatively oversized. I think I'm not making mine with too much positive ease, mainly because, well, I don't like huge oversized mohair sweaters. I like them to have some positivities, but not too much. And I also only have 2 skeins of the fingering weight yarn and 2 skeins of the mohair, so I need to make this work. So I'm going to work the body until I run out of yarn. I've got that much left of my first 2 skeins of both of these. I'll say what they are in a sec. And once I finish the body with that, make the sleeves, whatever is left will go into the body. If it ends up being the length, you know, the full length and it's meant to be, great. If it's a bit cropped, absolutely fine. This is cropped. I do wear them. But I love the colour combination. So the fingering weight yarn I'm using is this one here. This is called Auburn Biscuit. And the mohair I'm using, did it have a name? Might have had a name. But this is from Hook and Light. I think it was dyed using like onion skins maybe. Oh, I don't think I mentioned. The dyer, what's her name? I think her dyeing like name, her brand name is Shint's Pies? Maybe? Sorry if I completely mispronounced that or said the wrong one, but I'm pretty sure that's right. I'll put the information here anyway. But so I started this while I was waiting for the yarn for my other test knit to arrive when I was feeling well and was just working on the increases. Then stopped working on this when the yarn for that one arrived, finished that one because that one I started first. So I was like, I don't even know, this one might be due sooner, but I know I can get through this quickly as well. And I just wanted to focus on one of them at a time. So I've split for sleeves now. I've done maybe 1 inch of the body now. And it's been a really easy and nice knit. I find mohair frustrating because it gets everywhere, including my mouth. But the end result is so soft. I think if you've been watching my episodes, you might know I've been really into the mild effect with sweaters when I use mohair. I don't know. I could have used lighter fingering weight yarn. I do have some that would have matched, but I wanted this. And as soon as I started working with it, I was like, it's beautiful. Oh, I love it. I'll show you the stitch marker actually. Because I just mentioned the project bag. So this is the little snowflake stitch marker. There you go. Which came in the Christmas Eve box as well. And that was made by Hannah from the Corner of Craft. So I think that's really adorable. And I'm using Chowgu needles. I love these. I'm apparently a huge fan of wooden needles. But I only have 1 set of like stoppers or whatever these are called. So I couldn't use a Chowgu cable on this side. I would have had one same length as this one, which is perfect for sleeves. So I'll work this sleeve first and then move the cable over at some point when I work the second. So not too much to say about this one. I've been loving it. There's a whole like Instagram group of us, so it's been nice to kind of see how other people have been working through it. And because I didn't get started as quickly as everyone else, I skipped a few kind of difficulties that some people were having. There wasn't much. It's a really well written pattern already. I think it is her first design. So people were just a bit confused about certain things, and depending on how experienced you are, sometimes if a mistake happens, if you're relatively new, you assume you've made a mistake and you need to fix something. Whereas I've started to learn, if I think something's wrong with the pattern, I just contact the designer and say, can you clarify this before I continue? And I've just kind of grown a bit more confident in that. So I love this. I love it so much. So that should hopefully be done soon as well, because I think the deadline for that is like mid-March. And so now that I've finished the other one, will give me time to work on this. And then the last one will probably be the hardest to show off, because it's just really, I've got it on a short cable. I do actually have a longer one now, so I probably should transfer it. Sorry, it's just a bit tangled. But if you have watched my Make 9 video, and if you watched, I think it was the last episode, I mentioned that I want to make the ultra yoke. I'm just going with that pronunciation. I'm sorry if it's wrong. If anyone does know how to pronounce it properly, I'm more than happy to be corrected. But the Otra Yoke cardigan by Skandia, and it's a steeked sweater, my first time steeking, and this is what I have so far. Like I said, it's like really scrunched up. I think I've done all my increases already for the colour work. I think I've got short rows and stuff coming up. But let me just try and show off the colour work, because... So I'd mentioned that the original design uses a main colour and one contrast colour. But I quite like the idea of using a couple of different minis, so I've used 5 different contrasting minis. So I like the fact that the first one's really subtle and looks like all these splodges you get from the main yarn. So the main yarn is Rust Bucket by Ducky Darlings, and these minis are from Ducky Darlings as well, from her Paint Box minis and Dusk. No, not Dusk. Darks, I think it is. So I kind of roughly figured out when to change within the colourwork pattern, so that, bearing in mind that as you do an increase, you're going to have more stitches, which means you're going to need more of your yarn, so you should be doing fewer rows, but then also going like within like a pattern like this. Can you see that? Maybe. Within a repeat like that, I don't want to change colour. So you can see I always finished a section before I change colour. So I think after this one, so I've just started with my 4th colour. I've got one more colour left, and then the colour work's done. It's been pretty simple. I'm just working with 2 colours. The steek stitches have been a bit frustrating at times, because I think it might be the markers that I'm using, but at times they're just a bit loose. So down here, I thought they were looking really good. And then up here, they've just been a bit weird. And I also didn't know if I'm changing colour, because the way that you're meant to work it is the steek stitches are actually your first stitches that you work. And that means if you're incorporating a new colour, I was like, well, does that mean I have to start the steek with that colour? Or is it better if I finish with the other one? So I'll have to be really careful when I reinforce this to make sure my ends are woven in nicely and secured, and kind of making sure that I take my time when I sew across to reinforce everything. But other than that, it's been going really well. It's literally just, you know, colour work. And after I've been working on the dark water sweater, like I did this in 2 days maybe. I just went for it. I went nuts. I've made a few mistakes occasionally with the stitch count because I got confused, but it's fine. I really don't care. If it has mistakes, that happens with hand knit stuff. So I'm hoping when I share this next time, the colour work will be done and I'll be able to have it on a bigger cable so you can see it all much better. But I think it's beautiful. And what I've been doing with this one, and this is why I actually started is I've been using this. Can you see that? So it has, focus. It's not going to focus. So it's got these 2 loops, and you thread your main colour into the left one and your contrast colour into the right one. And then you just wrap I normally wrap yarn around my finger, but what you have to do with this is like use your pinky instead and then like thread them through here. And it just allows you to have the 2 strands in one hand. So while this isn't 3-stranded colour work, I'm just practicing getting used to that, and I picked it up quite quickly, I have to say. And it just means when I come to do, you know, 3-stranded colour work in the future, you know, when I make my own pair of those Foxtail socks, I can actually have all 3 colours in my hand at once, which I think will make the whole thing a bit easier. And I've been loving it. I've actually been loving wrapping the yarn around my pinky instead of my, like, index finger. Is it index finger? But yeah, so this has been going quite well. With some of the colours, it got a bit scary towards the end because I didn't have much left, but it's all worked out. I should have plenty for the last bit of the pattern. Still got plenty of my main colour left, and then I've got 2 more of this, so not worried at all about that. I think yardage wise I have more than enough. And that's kind of the last thing I've been working on. It's a lot of different projects. I'm trying to get better with finishing off things. So I had mentioned that I'm trying to pick one of my old projects to always focus on, and once that's done, pick up another old one. But the one I'm working on I can't show because it's a present for someone. I don't think they watch this, but just in case they randomly decide to and they click in the perfect spot where I'm talking about it and mention it, they'll be like, oh, I think that's for me. How nice. I'm like, no, not risking it. But once it's done, once I've given that away, I'll share what it is. But I am working on that. I kind of set myself a rough goal of trying to work on it every day. If I don't feel like it, I set a timer for 30 minutes and I sit down, and often I then just keep going because it's just the getting into it which is hard because it's knitted flat, which I find a bit hard. But I'm doing the sleeves right now. It is a jumper, I can tell you that. And I'm working the sleeves right now 2 at a time, and I quite like that. But working the front and back separately, I don't like it. But the end product will be exciting. So I'll share, I don't think, from memory, this might just be the fever delirium, but I think I haven't really purchased that much stuff recently. Maybe, could be wrong. But I've got 2 different purchases to show you. I'll show you the cute one first. See. Georgie did a shop update beginning of Feb. I think it was February. I might be wrong. And she introduced a colour called Champagne Kisses. So I bought a skein of Champagne Kisses. So it's just like this beautiful kind of cream with like speckles of pink, but also like some yellow. Oh, I just think it's beautiful. And then I bought the matching minis as well. So you can kind of see how they go really well together. So what I'm thinking about doing is making, so they're both 100 grams, so I've got 800 meters in total. I can't get a jumper out of that in my size. Well, I guess I could. It would just be really open and airy, but I don't want to do that. I'm thinking about making potentially like a little t-shirt. Something like the Riff Tee, is it by Tennis Fibre? So kind of like a striped thing. So I'm not sure, I think I might actually want the colour work. God, it's not colour work, it's stripes. Guess it still counts. But instead of just having like the minis up here, I think I might actually like stripe them through. This one here is quite, or is it this one? This one here is quite similar, but I think that's fine. That's fine. I've got my hair on everything again, but so I'm still fully deciding on what to do, but I definitely want to do something together, and I think like a t-shirt or something could be quite cute in these. And then the other thing is this yarn here. So this is West Country Tweed by Blacker in the pale pink colour. Does it say? Just says it's 100% pure new wool. So it's DK weight. And I didn't really have anything in mind. I just really wanted to try this yarn, and I got it from Fine Fettle Yarns, potentially. I'll have it linked below. And she was having a sale on this yarn. And I think this was the only colour she had left. And I was like, if I buy 2 skeins, they're 50-gram balls. That should be enough to do something with. And I think might actually be enough to do one of the hats in here. I say one of the hats. There is only one hat from Mowry. Let me find it. I think it's meant to be with thicker yarn, like worsted weight. Okay, I'll show this picture. Can you see that? I'm just moving around a lot. I think I might have enough for that. And I think that could be quite cute together. So that's the one on the front cover there. Or I might find something else, but that's currently what I've been thinking about. And like I said, it was on sale. I just wanted to try it because I've heard a bit about blacker yarns, and this ended up being relatively cheap because it was on sale. And I thought it was a nice way to try it out, even if I, you know, can always try and make socks with it, but I think I'd rather do like a hat or maybe some mittens or something and just get a feel for this yarn because I think it's cute. I think that's everything. I just hit the camera. Life-wise, nothing's really changed. If you're in the UK, or even if you're not, if you've looked at the kind of plan for easing lockdown and stuff, I think it's ambitious. If it works, great. But I think we all need to be a bit realistic that going back to how things were before the pandemic and lockdown, I think it's going to be quite a big shock for quite a lot of people, and potentially people who wouldn't think it would be a shock and wouldn't have even thought about it. So a lot of people with kind of experience with mental health problems or currently, you know, are going through and struggling. I think we are typically the sort of people who think about how change is going to affect us, especially if you're a very anxious person and an overthinker. But I think other people who don't spend a lot of time about that will just be like so excited to get back to it, and then might find that they're feeling really frustrated, overwhelmed, anxious maybe, and they just don't know why and don't understand it. And I'm just a bit worried about what that's going to mean. So we'll see how it all goes. I'm quite happy at home. I do wish I could see people, of course, but I've been enjoying the kind of slower pace. My thesis took a bit of a break because I was so ill. I was teaching this morning, and I've also done some work today, but for the kind of rest of this week, I'm going to try and get a lot done and see if I can finish off a chapter, which would be nice. But so progress is happening, but it's just been ups and downs. I'll have really good weeks, and then all of a sudden it'll be weeks of not really getting anything done. And that's okay. A thesis is hard and it takes time. I guess the only other thing I'll quickly mention if you're interested, I have a Nintendo Switch. I've owned it for quite a while now. I bought it in 2019, and I have a game on it called Ori and the Blind Forest. So if you have a Switch, I think it also comes on Xbox. I love that game. It's like a puzzle platformer, which is what I really, really like in a video game. But the like drawings and stuff, I think it's all hand drawn. It's so beautiful. I'm relatively good at gaming, not so much anymore recently because haven't played as much as I normally do. But I find it a challenge, but not so challenging that it's infuriating. But that's something I've really been enjoying and just playing on my Switch. And I like the fact I can sit down and, you know, play like by the TV, but then also pick it up and kind of just snuggle on the sofa or lie in my bed. And I know I shouldn't play in my bed with the Nintendo Switch, but I do sometimes. I think that's sort of everything. I'll probably have more to say. I've got plenty of other videos if you want to, you know, check out what I've done in the past. The Make 9, I'd love, you know, to hear if you're working on anything. But yeah, so please, you know, if you like the video, give it a like. If you want to keep up to date with what I'm up to, you can find me on Instagram, where I'm the most active, at Nina_Maria_Design. And so you can follow me on there. If you subscribe to this channel, you'll also be notified. I'm trying to release a video a week, either one of these like podcast episodes or something like the Make 9 or the Knit Love Wool Knit Along of my like dark water sweater that I'm recording. So yeah, easiest thing, hit that subscribe button. And I'd love it, once again, if you left a comment. I get really excited when I see people's comments. Them kind of, you know, interacting with things I've been saying in the video, or mention, you know, things they're hoping to do and achieve, and it's just nice. It's the same thing as when you get a comment on Instagram when you're starting out. It just feels nice to see people engage with what you're doing, especially if you really love what you do. And I think I've made it obvious enough that I really love knitting. I think I've made it really obvious that I definitely like yarn because I have so much. But I think I also like to think that I've shown off how much I love love knitting just in general. And getting into crochet now. There'll be sewing in the future, I promise. I just need to... Well, I've been ill. It's just my excuse for everything, isn't it? So I need project bags, which I mentioned before. So I'm going to sew a couple. 2 or 3 I think I've got material for. So that will happen. But that's everything from me. Hope you're doing well. Please stay safe. Look after yourself. Reach out for help if you need it. Sometimes I think the nicest thing can literally just be, you know, messaging someone being like, can we do a virtual coffee? You don't even have to talk about what's bothering you, but it's just trying to bring some normality into it. That's what I like about my teaching. It almost starts to feel a bit more normal again, interacting with people that I don't know. But yes, thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!